भारत।
ये है भारत एफएम।
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत।
Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to Bharat Media. Viewers, you're welcome, sir. Listeners and viewers, we have Steve Chabot, who is running for Congressman, District 1, and he has been there for, if I'm not wrong, for 24 years, doing great service to the community. But as a media house, we are always like to encounter such a great politicians. I would say senior also, almost senior. Sir, you are most senior in the Congress right now, right?
From Ohio on the Republican side. Yeah, there's 12 Republicans and 4 Democrats. I'm the most senior of the 12 Republicans in Ohio.
Yeah. And viewers, again, I would like to just let you know that he is always been helping to the Indian Hindu cause, and we should help him. After this interview, if you feel that he is best candidate for us, I recommend highly to vote for him on this congressional election. Welcome, sir. And shall we start?
Sure. Go right ahead, Manan.
Question 1.
Okay.
What do you think about that Ohio? What exactly it has to be? What you are planning to get it done?
Well, there's an awful lot of things we need to get done, but I'd say number one is getting the economy rolling along well, having a strong economy again. And in order to do that, we need to get inflation under control. Things just cost too much. If you go to the grocery store right now, everything has gone up in price. It seems like if you go this week, it's higher than it was last week. And there's a reason for that. It didn't just happen. It happened because of self-inflicted policies by the Biden administration and the Nancy Pelosi Democrat and Chuck Schumer Senate. They have spent too much money, and we're no longer energy independent. They've discouraged energy production. So we have to buy our energy from other countries now too much. Since everything costs so much more, they're spending so much money, it's been inflationary. So those two things, I think, the out of control spending and our lack of energy production, those two things have caused inflation. And I think that's the number one thing that's hurting Americans right now, both in Ohio and across the country. And the other thing is crime. There's too much crime in this country right now. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of Democrats who support defunding the police, like my opponent. He was the guy on Cincinnati City Council that introduced the resolution to take $200,000 out of their budget and give it to the folks who pursue complaints against the police. And then he voted to take another $1 million out of their budget. And so those are just very bad policies. I've always been a strong supporter of law enforcement and safe communities. And that's why the local police, both here in Cincinnati, have endorsed me and not him. And that's why in Warren County, the police have endorsed me as well and not my opponent.
What should Congress do to help relieve inflation?
Well, we should be energy independent again. We should encourage, not discourage, energy production in this country. And I'm for all of the above energy policies, meaning natural gas, oil, some coal, if it's clean coal, nuclear, all of the above, and also wind and biomass, really all of the above types of energy. The left has only encouraged basically windmills and solar, and those are fine. But if you have an electric car now, if we all get forced into electric cars, which is what they want to do, and if people want to buy an electric car, that's fine, but they're expensive, and you have to have the battery replaced periodically, which is very expensive, and you have to plug it in at night. And where's the energy coming out of the wall? It's coming from either a coal-fired plant or a natural gas, or nuclear, and so we really need to encourage this country to be energy independent once again.
With regard to the taxes, your opponent is running to accuse you for raising taxes. How do you respond to that?
This was the craziest charge I think in my entire time in Congress I've ever had thrown against me. I've been known as the community's anti-tax crusader. That's what the newspaper called me. I've consistently voted against raising taxes. And so what he used is his excuse for saying that I raised taxes is because I voted for President Trump and the Republicans' Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which we passed. Let me emphasize that, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So it was not raising taxes like my opponent said, but it was actually cutting taxes. But he knew that he was in trouble because he has actually voted to raise taxes. He just threw this ridiculous charge and hoped up against the wall and hoped it would stick. But it's so ridiculous, nobody believes it because it's not true. But he actually was somebody, and this is Greg Landsman I'm talking about. He's for raising taxes. He voted to raise taxes 8 times as a member of Cincinnati City Council. He wanted to raise the sales tax too, which hurts everybody. He said that the property taxes for your homes and that sort of thing, he said they were too high, but then he voted to raise them again, and they went even higher. And then this is at a time when he wasn't paying his own taxes. He got slapped with a bill, a deficiency, a lien for not paying his own taxes. And he also agreed with hiring 87,000 new IRS agents. And I think that's the last thing that we need to do is hire a bunch of new IRS agents. If we were going to hire 87,000 new federal employees, let's put them down on our southern border and get control of the border so the drug cartels aren't, sending fentanyl up here, killing over 100,000 Americans every year.
Yep. While talking to the opponents for this interview, my team was researching on your whole stuff of the campaign. We saw one of the video, but we couldn't figure it out what exactly it was. It was just 1.5 minutes of your video that somebody told you to ban for this election and stuff like that, and you counter them that no, you should be banned, and some judge passed an order not to run him again. What was that?
Yeah, what it was is he said that, back during the election, this last election, I was the chairman or had been the chairman of the Constitution Subcommittee of Judiciary. And in the Constitution, it says that only the legislature of a state can change the election law. And up in Pennsylvania, they didn't follow the Constitution. They had a bunch of other folks, some elected, some not elected, but not the legislature changing the election law. So I couldn't in good faith vote to certify that election. But I did vote to certify Arizona. There were only 2 states that were in contention. So he said that was disqualifying. That's what my opponent said. It was disqualifying. And what I said to him, Manan, was, I'll tell you what's disqualifying when a judge tells you that you lied to the public, that you ought to resign, and that nobody should ever vote for you again. That's disqualifying. And that's just what a Judge Ruhlman, told Mr. Landsman in a courtroom because he was involved in a criminal conspiracy with a number of other members of Cincinnati City Council to violate the state's open meetings laws. They were texting back and forth in order to do the public's business in secret, and they're not allowed to do that. And they knew that, but they violated the law anyway. So the judge told him that he ought to resign and never should run again, and nobody should ever vote for him again. To me, when a judge tells you that, that's disqualifying.
Yep, definitely. Shifting the gear to some other topics, could you speak about how the CHIP Act will affect our region and Ohio at large?
Yeah, the CHIPS Act was very important. I voted for it. It was a bipartisan bill. It was Republicans and Democrats, and I voted for it. I was one of 8 Republicans in Ohio that voted for it. Basically, right now, if you try to buy a car, you have a hard time buying one because we don't have the chips, the semiconductors to go in those cars. So there's a whole bunch of cars sitting out there that don't have the chips, and so cars are going up in price because we can't get new cars here, and computers and a whole lot of other things. Semiconductors go into virtually every electronics thing that we make nowadays that we all buy and depend upon. In the United States used to make a significant proportion of the world's chips. Unfortunately, over the years, most of that's gone overseas, and we now only produce about 12% of the chips in the whole world here in the United States. Most of them are now produced, over 70% are produced in one country, and that's Taiwan. Now, of course, China doesn't consider Taiwan to be a country, but they are, for all intents and purposes, a de facto country. And China is looking to try to take over Taiwan. And one reason is they'd like to corner the market on those semiconductors, and we cannot let that happen. So what the CHIPS bill did is it said we're going to start building these again once in our own country. So it has tax incentives for companies to build them here. And fortunately, Ohio is going to come out very well in this. Intel is building it's about a $20 billion plant outside Columbus. And I was meeting with President Pinto, UC's president, just about a month ago. And even though the plant isn't being built right here in Cincinnati, Cincinnati is going to benefit tremendously. All our universities are gearing up for this. It's a lot of their students, it's going to mean their jobs in the future. And I don't mean up in Columbus, I mean here in the Cincinnati area, because a lot of the small businesses here locally will sell to Intel. So it's going to be an extremely important environment that we here in Ohio are going to benefit with thousands and thousands of jobs in the future. So that's why I supported the CHIPS bill.
Again, your opponent are outside the group and have said that you do not support exceptions and abortions and oppose the birth control. Are these accusations are true?
They're completely false. I have no problem with contraception and have never voted to discourage or stop people from getting contraception. These are made up ads that they're running just to basically distort and scare people. On the exceptions, I was the principal sponsor of something called the ban on partial birth abortion, which were late-term abortions oftentimes around 20, 25 weeks at that time. And they banned those. And I was the principal sponsor of the legislation. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld it, said it's constitutional. It's the law of the land. And even a lot of Democrats supported me on that legislation. And we had exceptions in there for rape, incest, and life of the mother. And virtually every bill that I've ever seen that's come through Congress, at least ones that Republicans supported, have had those exceptions in there. So we support exceptions, but they run these ads to try to make you look like an extremist. I'll tell you what's an extremist, and that's what Mr. Landsman is for, and what Nancy Pelosi got through Congress, which was to allow abortions for any reason, at any time, all the way up to birth. I mean, think of that, up to 7 months, 8 months, 9 months that you could have an abortion. To me, that's extreme and ought not to be permitted. In Europe, for example, most of the countries have about a 14-week ban. Lindsey Graham proposed a 15-week ban. So the extremists on this are mostly Democrats on the left, not Republicans like myself.
One of the viewers has sent one question is Alok Patel. What are some of the things that your office is able to help with on official side?
Well, we try to help people, and we don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, whether they vote for me or not. We're here to serve the people that I represent, which is about 750,000 people. And our district, by the way, changed a bit. We now have all of the city of Cincinnati. We have the whole east side of Hamilton County. We used to have the west side of Hamilton County, but they switched it. We now have the east side instead of the west side. The only west side district, the only west side neighborhood outside the city is Delhi. is in our district. And then we have all of Warren County. That's been in my district for the last 10 years, and it still is. So those are the people that we represent, and we're really only allowed to represent folks that are in our district. If you contact my office and we either no longer represent you or we don't at the time, we'll refer you to the right congressman who can help you. But the types of things that we can help on are a whole bunch of things. If you have a problem with any federal agency like the IRS, maybe you're being audited and you think what's happened isn't fair, you can contact our office. We can try to help. It might be a Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid matter, or maybe you're a veteran and you're entitled to veterans benefits, but you're just not getting them for one reason or another. Or maybe you need a passport, or you'd like to travel and you're having difficulty getting a visa. Those things can be very complicated, and sometimes people will hire a lawyer to handle these things for them. But we can actually do a lot of this, and it's free. You don't have to pay anything. And we work as hard as we can on every case that comes to our office. We can't guarantee you that we're going to get you the results you want, but we can guarantee you we'll try as hard as we possibly can. And we win more than we lose, that's for sure.
I believe you, sir. Can you speak about the resolution you introduced with Representative Khanna to recognize the 1971 Bangladesh genocide?
Yes.
I would like to just correct this thing that he is the only one congressman who has supported this for the Hindu cause. If you think that this is the right, we should think about it now. It's the time.
Yeah, I think this is very important legislation. Yes, it's something that happened a long time ago. It actually happened the year I graduated from high school, 1971. And this was when East Pakistan and West Pakistan were basically breaking apart. And of course, they had broken apart from India, prior to that. The Pakistani military went into East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh, and their military just killed huge numbers of people, mostly Hindus and Bengalis. And I'm talking about millions of people who were murdered, many tortured. Over 200,000 women were raped. I mean, it's just horrible. And so this was a genocide. They were targeted because of who they were, not because they'd done anything wrong or they were guilty of any crime. And there are a lot of other genocides that have been recognized in the world over time. And this is one, unfortunately, that really hasn't been recognized as a genocide. And we're far past due a time that those people be recognized, that they not be forgotten. So it'll educate the world and the public about what happened. And I think most importantly, it will deter future, atrocities by establishing the principle that we'll never forget. You may get away with it for a while, but the world will come back and you'll be held accountable. Now, in reality, some of these people that committed these heinous atrocities are gone now. They've died off, just like the victims, the millions of victims that they targeted. But I think it's very important that the world recognize this, and I'm the lead Republican on the bill. I'm co-chair of the Congressional India Caucus, and I'm also co-chair of the Congressional Bangladesh Caucus. So that's why I'm so involved in this. And then Ro Khanna, who is an Indian American member of Congress, he's a Democrat. He and I are doing this together. So it's bipartisan, so we have a lot better chance of actually accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish here.
Wow. So last question, that what are your proudest achievements of the last few terms in the Congress?
Okay, well, if we'll just limit it to the last couple, let me just talk about just two, because I know we've only got a limited amount of time. And the one I already talked about, which was the CHIPS Act. That's going to mean thousands and thousands of jobs here in Cincinnati. So let me talk about a different one, and that would be the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program. When the pandemic happened, so many small businesses all across the country and right here in our community had their doors shut. And it was the government. They didn't do it voluntarily. The government said, you've got to shut down because of the pandemic. We're trying to stop the spread of it and try to save lives. And that's what we did. Well, just because the people couldn't go into work anymore didn't mean those people didn't need money to put bread on the table and to pay for gasoline to get their family around. So people needed money. So I was the lead Republican on the Small Business Committee at that time, and I had been the chairman of the committee. But then the Congress switched over to Democrats. So instead of being the lead Republican or ranking member, instead of being the chair, I became the ranking member or lead Republican. And I work in a bipartisan manner. I always work that way, and that's why when University of Virginia and Vanderbilt did 3 studies over the last 10 years of members of Congress who are the most effective. I've come in the top 10 most effective members of Congress in all 3 studies. And there are 435 members of Congress. So that's pretty good. So in this case, I worked with the Democratic chair, Nydia Velasquez from New York is her name. And she was my ranking member when I was chair. So I was her ranking member when she was chair. So we worked together to do something about getting something to those small businesses out there. And then there were 2 senators that worked on the Senate side, really 4 of us. And so we came up with the PPP program. And I was down at the signing ceremony when the president signed this into law. And the loans were going out. And I'm proud to say that our community, the 1st District of Ohio, the greater Cincinnati area, including most of Hamilton County and all of Warren County, we got more money than any other congressional district in Ohio. It was almost $3 billion. More small businesses got loans than any other district in Ohio, over 27,000. And most importantly, more people received a check, saved their jobs. And that was 247,000 people. So we're talking 250,000, and there are 750,000 people in our district. So that's 1 out of 3 people. And if you consider that they have family, you're probably talking about 1 out of every other family got a PPP check. And it allowed those folks, while their business was shut down, to actually survive and support their family. So, Manan, that's the thing that I'm probably the most satisfied of, actually accomplishing something that helped the people in our district. And it's really, it's an honor to have been able to do that. And you mentioned my opponent before. He attacks me all the time. He says, "Oh, Chabot's never accomplished anything." Well, it's interesting. He got a PPP loan. He had a small business. He got 6. This is a guy that makes almost $400,000 a year. And probably didn't need a $16,000 PPP loan because he has like a side business. But he took it anyway. And then he bashes me and says I haven't done anything. Well, that meant an awful lot to those people that got loans. And we actually ultimately ran out of money for that program. So it would have been nice if maybe somebody who didn't make $400,000 a year and didn't need it could have got that $16,000 that he got. But then he never brings that anybody's attention. He like to forget about that.
Even I got PPP, sir. So thanks to that.
Very good.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. And any last few words you want to say to the listeners and viewers of Bharat Media?
Sure. Well, it's an honor to represent, the people of the 1st Congressional District in Congress. I've been doing this for quite some time now. I think I'm pretty good at it. And we've been very effective in representing the folks here. And I'd like to continue to do this. I don't know exactly how long I'm going to do this after this election, but it really is something that it gives you a great feeling to be able to help so many people in this district. And I'm proud to be co-chair of the Congressional India Caucus. It's a very important caucus, and our relationship with India is critical. We're the 2 probably most significant democracies. India is the largest democracy on earth, and the United States is the oldest democracy on earth. So it's important that our 2 very important countries work together. And that's something that I very much strive to continue to have a strong relationship between the United States and India. And I'll continue to do that. So I'd really appreciate your vote. And it's, of course, the election this year is on November 8th. But a lot of people vote early, and I would encourage people to vote, by mail if you can, or go vote early, or at least show up on election day and take your family along with you if they're registered, or your friends and neighbors, because this is a very, very important election. And the people deserve, and I'll just conclude with this, I think people deserve to be able to afford groceries. And right now, it's just too expensive. And to fill up your tank, it's just too expensive. So we got to do something about inflation. And the other thing is people deserve to live in safe neighborhoods. And I will always fight to make sure that we support the police and that our neighborhoods are safe. So Manan, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with the folks today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your valuable time, sir. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.